take note of the document
Thank you very
you wish
much,
to
Mr
speak
Deputy
to.
President. Look, I move to take note of item 12, which relates to an order for production that the Senate carried not that long ago, relating to the Perth Freight Link, and it has become a matter of routine for this government to defy such orders of the Senate. I thank the Australian Labor Party and I thank the majority of crossbenchers who voted with the Greens in order to achieve some basic transparency on this government's plan to ram a freeway between 4 and 6 lanes they won't disclose through the Belia wetlands and the Belia Regional Park, destroying around 100 hectares of priceless and irreplaceable Banksia woodland, and now apparently to dive a tunnel under suburbs of North Lake, Palmyra and into East Fremantle before surfacing in East Fremantle, creating a catastrophic traffic jam and falling short of the entrance to the Port of Fremantle by a kilometre or two. It is the most destructive, unwanted, unnecessary and reviled project in modern Western Australian political history, and the government again chose to defy an order for production of documents as to who on earth is making the decisions and who believes inside the Commonwealth and state political structures that this is actually a project that is in the public interest. The twisted logic where the ideal of maximum transparency for governments and maximum privacy for citizens is reversed. We see instead maximum transparency for citizens in the obliteration of privacy through dragnet data retention being simply one example, and minimum transparency for government and corporate interests through defiance of Senate resolutions such as this. I'm presuming the clerks are keeping count. I long since lost count of how many of these Senate resolutions this government has defied, and it's time that they were called on it. The failure to provide even basic levels of transparency when it comes to funneling money out the door, billions of dollars in this instance. It's the same for WestConnex. It would have been the same for the East-West Link in Victoria, except for community action. Community action will prevail in Sydney, and community action will prevail in the case of the Perth Freight Link. But in the meantime, the minimum that we ask of this government is some transparency. This is not your money. This is taxpayers' money that you hold in trust. And you come in here and lecture us about transparency. National Party senators get on their feet and say, no disbursement of money is worth more than $100 million unless a public business case and the cost-benefit analysis has been conducted and published and put into the public domain. We're not asking for much. In this instance, we simply want to know who is actually driving this agenda. Who is it who wants to tip $1 billion worth of concrete into the Belia wetlands, obliterating Aboriginal sacred sites, destroying neighbourhood amenity, pumping diesel fumes through subterranean stacks into surrounding areas, and that doesn't even reach the port? The Transport Minister, Nalda, who should have been sacked months ago for this debacle, won't even tell the people of Western Australia how this atrocity gets to the container yard. And you talk about fiscal responsibility and economic maturity. And on the eve of this budget that will no doubt carry hundreds of millions of dollars of public funds into this project that nobody wants, the state government is in the Supreme Court of Western Australia today arguing on appeal that the guidelines or the rules, the policies of the state EPA, which they so casually violated in ticking this thing off, should merely be considered as guidelines, just window dressing, i.e. not worth the paper it's printed on. That's the argument that the state government is making in the Supreme Court today, that the EPA shouldn't be held to account on its own policies for the kind of environmental destruction that is contemplated here. In the last sitting week, the Senate ordered the government to provide all documents relating to the random and sudden decision of the Prime Minister to write out a $260 million cheque for a tunnel that nobody wants to connect this road from the destruction of the wetlands to nowhere in particular, a couple of k's short of the port. A tunnel that hasn't been even designed yet. It is time that this government was held to account. Put these documents into the public domain as the Senate has ordered you to do, and let's get some transparency